It's been almost 2 years since the last major GPU launch, and we're pretty much ready and waiting impatiently for the next one. So I needed a new test bench, so when those new GPUs, new CPUs, new whatever do arrive, I am here ready and prepped, capable to test them out and see how they perform and be at the forefront of technology videos. So here's my new test bench. It isn't the greatest, but it sure as hell is going to get the job done just perfect. Let's start off with the case. And honestly, the case is the hardest part because, well, PC parts aren't hard to come by, but getting a test bench, that is a different thing. You see, test benches are not that common to get your hands on, and those that you can often find specifically built for test benching parts and stuff, they tend to be really, really expensive. Thankfully though, I have friends over at Cooler Master, and I asked them for some help and asked them if they could send over the Masterframe 700. And they did. So shout out to them for providing this case, because this case is a test bench and I can actually use it to easily test bench CPUs, GPUs, whenever those things come out. But this case is very interesting because it's like really solid heavy steel. The build quality is immense and it's got these wings right here. But these wings are actually there so that it can transform between a test bench and like a proper PC case. Though it's not a practical PC case that anyone should really buy, it is a really fancy PC case for someone to use as kind of like a piece of furniture, as a showcase piece. Or you can just use it as a test bench, which I think is the most ideal way to use this case, which is really, really nice. I mean, this case has impressed me, not because that it really makes a lot of sense for most people. It's not designed or intended to be practical, but it's impressed me because the build quality is like second to none. This is just insane steel. And also it's got a lot of ingenious little tricks up its sleeve that I definitely appreciate. Also, it's kind of absolutely bonkers, which fits me because I am not a sane person as well. As for the parts that are in the test benching, well, we've got a CPU and motherboard and GPU to deal with. So this right here is actually a 3060 Ti. It's just my own 3060 Ti, which I use for gaming. And in fact, when I'm not test benching with this PC, I'm actually using it to do some streaming, and I plan to start streaming really, really soon, but getting things set up is it's more difficult than I expected it to be. Whatever, I plan to do it soon. I plan to stream some keyboard builds, but I digress. So it needs to be decently powerful so it doesn't bottleneck whatever I'm testing out on this test bench. So it's got a 5600X AMD 6-core 12-thread processor. It's going to be fast enough and it should not bottleneck any GPU out there, especially in GPU-intensive games. I've got 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM in here. Now the CPU, motherboard, well, it's all subject to change really to become the best of whatever I can get my hands on, but this is currently just what I have my hands on, so it is what is in the test bench. And it should be no problem at all since, 16 gigs of RAM, it's not gonna really affect GPU performance testing result. Now, keeping the CPU nice and cool is another Cooler Master part, so big shout out to them for sending it over. It's this right here. This is the ML360 V3, and it absolutely is one of my favorite all-in-one water coolers that I've ever messed with. Number one, it's really big and thick and bonkers, and it's complete overkill for just a 5600X, which isn't a very hot processor at all. But more than that, it's really nice. I think it looks great. It's got RGB fans, and I really like that it comes with a nice fan hub. I've never seen an all-in-one water cooler or any PC part really come with such an extensive 6-fan, 6 RGB port hub in my life. But it is a pretty high-end cooler, so it does have high-end accessories. Performs very well, and it's never going to be a limiting factor, which is very, very important in a test bench. You don't want to be limited by one thing. You want everything to be as good as it can be, so nothing bottlenecks anything. As for the power supply, this is probably going to be the most likely part that I will change first, and that is a EVGA 850GR. The reason I'm likely to change this power supply really, really soon is, if you look at the rumors, it seems like the next generation of GPUs from Nvidia and possibly AMD would recommend having a 1000-watt power supply. So if I was to test the next RTX 4080 or 4090, I would need an even more powerful power supply to be safe than these 850-watt units, which is bonkers, like that all these freaking GPUs are getting so power hungry, but such is the nature of technology, such is the nature of the market that we are in. It is what it is. As for now, it's going to be perfect because, well, it should power any GPU that I plan to put in it, no problem, from an RTX 3060 Ti, which is pretty chill, to an RTX 3080 or 3090, no problems at all. It's also fully modular, which helps with cable management, and considering this is an open air case with literally nowhere to hide cables, it's going to be messy. So we want to keep it as neat as possible, though honestly, it's kind of unlikely because I'm not a guy who really organizes really well. Oh yeah, and the motherboard here is the X570 ASUS TUF Gaming motherboard. It is an MATX motherboard, but it is what I have on hand, so it is going to get the job done, no problem. Although there seems to be an issue with the PCIe Gen 4 slot on this one, so I actually have been running my GPU in Gen 3 mode, mode, which hurts performance a little bit, but considering I literally only play Valorant, shouldn't be a big deal. Skull emoji 6 times. But honestly, it's not a big deal. I plan to switch out the motherboard, so if there are any new GPU releases, I can test them properly. But for now, this is perfectly adequate, which is all that I really need. So yeah, that's my new test benching setup. Really excited to test bench some new GPUs and new CPUs and whatever comes out in the future on this. It's going to be really exciting. Big thank you to Cooler Master once again for basically giving me this Masterframe 700 to have something to build a test bench on, because it is kind of essential as a PC part tester to have something to test PC parts on. Just saying. So thank you guys so much for watching to the end. All love to you guys. Really appreciate. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, drop my Discord. You know the drill. Goodbye.